In the dusty town of Makumba, tucked between low hills and dry riverbeds, where the sun scorched rooftops and gossip burned even hotter, lived a quiet girl named Ebele. Makumba was not a town that kept secrets. If a hen laid an egg at dawn, everyone knew by breakfast. If your child made a mistake, it echoed from shop fronts to church benches before the day ended. So when a little girl could not stay dry through the night, everyone knew. They called her names. They mimicked the way she walked. They watched her with cruel interest people reserve for the strange and misunderstood. She was 10 years old, with thin arms, shy eyes, and no one ever saw her smile. She lived with her father's sister, Auntie Moja, in a cramped, crumbling house behind the butcher's shed. Her bed was a rolled up mat on a cold cement floor. Each morning, Ebele woke up damp. Her body would have betrayed her again in the night, leaving behind a wet stain of shame. She tried everything, sleeping on her side, holding her breath, drinking nothing after dusk, but still her dreams would drown her. And when her aunt discovered it every morning, without fail, her voice would cut through the house like a slap. You're cursed. That's what you are. A burden I never asked for. Every morning I wake up to your stink. And every night I pray it will be the last time I have to wash your shame off these floors. Your mother should have taken you with her when she died. Maybe then I would have peace in my house. Maybe then I would not be waking up to wet mats and neighbors whispering behind my back about the girl who sleeps like a goat. You have brought nothing but disgrace to this home. I feed you, I clothe you, and this is how you repay me? Shame upon shame. No one spoke of Ebele's mother. She had died when Ebele was 4. Her father disappeared soon after, swallowed by the city and never seen again. The cruelty wasn't just at home. At school, students pinched their noses when she walked fast. They joked that she carried her toilet with her. Some even poured water under her desk just to laugh when she stood up. The teachers, they turned away, pretended not to hear the laughter when her classmates mocked her, pretended not to see the wet patch on her uniform that day in July when she stood up too fast. One teacher even chuckled quietly when a boy called her Lick Ebele. None of them asked if she was okay. None of them pulled her aside to ask her why her eyes always looked tired or why she never joined group activities. They marked her books, gave her grades, and moved on as though she was just a shadow occupying space. In that classroom, full of voices, Ebele learned that the loudest silence came from the people who should have protected her. Ebele learned to disappear, to become invisible. She sat at the back of the class, scribbling in her notebook, drawing her own worlds where no one laughed and no one called her names. But deep inside, she burned. Not with anger, not with hate, but with something heavier: silence. Because the truth of her betting wasn't laziness or some childhood phase. It was trauma, unspoken, unhealed. When Ebele was 6, something had happened in that house, something that made her afraid to close her eyes. Her aunt's husband had touched her in ways she didn't have words for. When she finally told her aunt, the man was sent away, but Ebele was the one punished. Don't ever say those things again, her aunt warned, her voice low but sharp, like a knife slid beneath the skin. People will think you're mad, or worse, that you're trying to ruin this family. Do you want them to say I am raising a liar, a disturbed child? She did not touch Ebele that day, but her eyes, those cold burning eyes, told Ebele that the price of speaking would be heavier than the weight of any secret. Because of this, Ebele folded the truth deep inside herself, buried it under silence, and never mentioned it again. But her body remembered. Every night, it remembered. It remembered the darkness that crept into her bones when the house fell asleep. It remembered the scent of tobacco and sweat, the rustle of footsteps that never belonged in a child's room. If it remembered how her voice froze in her throat while the world outside stayed quiet. She stopped trusting sleep, stopped believing in safety, and although she said nothing, her body screamed in the only way it knew how, with fear, with soaked sheets, with trembling hands, and eyes that no longer dreamed. She grew up, but her nights never did. Then one day, everything changed. Just as the year threatened to fade into another blur of shame and silence, changed walked into the classroom wearing oversized glasses and city perfume. Her name was Miss Adora, and she was nothing like the other teachers. She did not arrive with fanfare or fuss, no loud greetings, no speeches about discipline, just a calm, confident presence and a smile that did not stretch too wide. The kind of smile that looked like it had been earned after surviving something difficult. Her clothes were neat but simple. Her shoes were too clean for the red dust of Macumba, and her accent carried a softness that made even the noisiest children pause when she spoke. No one quite knew why she had come to teach in such a forgotten place. Some whispered that she was running away from something. Others said she had a good heart, but none of it mattered to Ebele. Not at first, because unlike the others, Miss Adora did not stare at her. She did not laugh. She did not step back as if shame were contagious. Instead, she noticed her. Not in the way people noticed a stain or a shadow, but in the way a careful gardener notices a bird trying to bloom in poor soil. She saw the silence behind Ebele's eyes, the way her hands always fidgeted beneath the desk, the way she flinched whenever someone shouted too loudly. And for the first time, Ebele felt seen, not as a problem to be fixed, but as a person, quietly unraveling. On her third week, Miss Adora gave the class an assignment. Write a letter to someone you've never told the truth. You don't have to sign it. Just write. That day, Ebele stayed late after class, pretending to arrange her desk while the others left. She wrote, she wants to stop. She hates the smell. She tries so hard, but something wakes her up and she cannot move. She remembers things she cannot see, and every morning she feels small again. She did not sign it, but Miss Adora read it and did not need a name. The next day, she placed a note in Ebele's locker. You're not broken. We're surviving, and surviving is strength. I see you, even when no one else does. From that moment, something began to shift. Miss Adora never brought it up, not directly, but she started secretly leaving extra undergarments in Ebele's locker. She recommended stories where girls overcame things no one believed they could. She quietly moved Ebele closer to the front of the class. She did not make an announcement. There was no calling of names, no commands shouted over the noise of the classroom. Just a gentle tap on Ebele's desk one morning, and a calm voice saying, come sit here. She had cleared a space in the second row, right near the window where the sunlight softened the room and the breeze carried the scent of acacia trees. It was not the very front, because that would have drawn too much attention, but it was just close enough for Ebele to feel like she mattered. And strangely, no one laughed. No one jeered or called her names. Perhaps it was Miss Adora's quiet authority, or maybe it was the way she looked at Ebele, like she belonged there, like she was not a burden to be hidden at the back of the class. Ebele hesitated at first, clutching her books tightly to her chest, but Miss Adora did not rush her. She simply waited, her eyes steady and kind. So Ebele stood, walked forward, and took her place in the seat that had been waiting for her. And in that small act, the moving of one child from the shadows to the light, a seed of healing was planted. She did not say thank you, not with words, but that day, for the first time, she looked up when the teachers entered the room. For the first time, Ebele raised her hand. For the first time, she wrote poems instead of drawings. For the first time, she stopped apologizing for taking up space. By the time she was 13, she no longer woke up soaked in fear. The nightmares still came, but they did not drown her. The transformation was slow but steady. At 15, she joined the public speaking club. At 16, she organized the school's first health and hygiene day. At 17, she was writing articles for a youth magazine about emotional healing. People stopped mocking her. They started listening. They asked how she did it. Some apologized. Others, they pretended they never laughed at her. Years later, Ebele moved to the city. She became a counselor, then a certified trauma therapist, specializing in child abuse and post-traumatic recovery. She spoke on TV, she stood on stages and told her story, not with bitterness, but with power. Her name began to appear in small mental health circles, then in community panels, then in national forums. She did not seek fame, but the truth of her journey had a way of traveling ahead of her. Before long, Ebele was speaking on radio shows and TV segments, invited to conferences and schools to share her story, not with tears or trembling, but with clarity and strength. She stood on stages, lights on her face, microphones in her hand, and for the first time, she was not afraid of being seen. She told her story not to shock, but to heal, not to reopen wounds, but to show they could close and still leave you whole. She did not point fingers. She did not name names. She simply told the truth plainly, without dressing it in pity or rage. She spoke of the wet beds, the silence that swallowed her voice, the nights when her body screams in ways words never could. She spoke of shame, of survival, and the quiet strength it takes to keep going when no one claps for you. And in doing so, something powerful happened. She gave others permission to tell their truths, to speak of things they had buried, to open wounds they had sealed shut with fear, to say, "This happened to me too," without flinching, to finally exhale after years of holding their breath. In rooms packed with strangers, women wept quietly. Men lowered their eyes, finally understanding what their daughters had never said. Teenagers approached her after talks, hands trembling, voices cracking. "I thought I was the only one. You just told my story." Ebele's truth became a mirror, a window, a doorway for others to step through their own pain and find the language for it. She did not save them. She simply stood as proof that it was possible to survive and still become whole. One day, Ebele returned to Makumba. She did not come for revenge. She had outgrown the need to be vindicated. She came to build a center for young girls and named it the Adora Foundation. A safe space, a place with clean beds, trained counselors, art classes, and silence that did not hurt. The center would build a door where there had been once a wall. It will create a space where the next girl hiding in silence, in shame, in the corners of classroom and the back rooms of unloved homes would not have to walk the same lonely road she did. It would offer clean beds, listening ears, warm arms, and names spoken with kindness. She returned to make sure that no other child would have to wake up in wet clothes, afraid of both their dreams and their reality. She came back to give voice to the voiceless, to turn memory into movement, wounds into windows, because healing, she had learned, is not just a personal journey. It's a gift you pass on. Auntie Moja showed up that day, uninvited, unnoticed at first, slipping into the crowd just as the speeches began. She sat at the very back on the last row of plastic chairs under the acacia tree, hands folded tightly in her lap. She wore the same old headscarf she had always worn, but the ears had dimmed her defiance. Her face, once stern and sharp-tongued, was softer now, etched with lines the village sun had not made. She did not clap when the names were called. She did not smile when the crowd rose in applause. She just sat there, unmoving, her eyes locked on the woman standing at the front, on Ebele. The same girl she once dragged out of bed by the arm. The same girl she blamed for shame and misfortune. The same girl she cursed loudly, often and without remorse. And now, that girl stood behind a microphone, ribbon in hand, speaking with poise and power as she unveiled the Adora Foundation, a safe space for girls who had suffered in silence, just as she once had. The crowd saw Ebele's strength, but Auntie Moja saw something else, the weight of what she had done. The years of cruelty, the warnings to never speak again, the indifference to a child's suffering, they settled on her shoulders like bricks, and for the first time in decades, Auntie Moja had no words, no defense, just silence. She did not say a word, did not approach, did not ask for forgiveness. She simply watched, her eyes glassy with something halfway between pride and shame, as the girl she once tried to silence gave voice to 100 others. And Ebele? She saw her, met her gaze once, just once, and then she turned back to the ribbon, held it steady, and cut it clean like a cord between the past and everything still waiting to bloom. The crowd erupted in applause, but Ebele barely heard them. Her eyes welled, not from sadness, but from the sheer weight of arrival, of having walked through fire and still finding something beautiful on the other side. Auntie Moja was gone by the time Ebele looked back. Just an empty seat, but that was enough. She had come, she had seen, and she had said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. And somewhere in the quiet space between what had been and what could be, Ebele finally exhaled, not as the girl who had once been abandoned, but as the woman who built her home out of her healing. The closed door behind her, and the future began.